What's up, everyone? First Market Movers video here. I've been messing around with this. I just purchased this a few days ago. This is the Pro version here. Wanted to take a look at a lot of price movement and everything, so I decided to take the leap and make the purchase. Mainly I was interested in, it's that time of the year. Baseball got off to a hot start. It's kind of leveling out right now, but we're getting into the playoffs. So I was thinking about NBA playoffs, obviously. So I was thinking about how things are going to move forward, how you guys, the flippers out there. I'm not a flipper, don't know how you do it, but in the next episode, I'm going to cover a lot more prospective plays and movement for players that are going to be starring in the playoffs. I'm not an advice guy. I'm not a hype guy. I see those channels can't do it. I'm just going to provide some information for you. So buzz through some of this stuff real quick, and then we'll look at a few players. Guys, gals, out in public. They had a boatload of these at the Targets out there this past Friday. And that was Friday the 7th. I had to go to a couple different Targets to pick these up. Two of the Targets in my area allow only one item. I arrive late. I'll come in there about 8:30. I'm not that guy to be waiting in line to try to get a mega box or a blaster. That's fine. Those guys, the young cats, they can do that stuff. I stroll in at 8. Fortunately, the past couple weeks, there's still been some of this on the shelf, so I've been able to pick some of that up. But as I was saying, two of my Targets, they allow one item, and then another one of the Targets in my area, I'm fortunate enough to have 3 within about a 7-mile radius. That one allows 2, but they have to be from different sports. Conversely, though, all of the Walmarts in my area, they don't sell sports cards at all. Now, last 7 days, let's take a look at some of the players that are hot. Kenny Galladay. You see the numbers here. We'll just kind of read these guys off real quick so you can think about some of these players. Anthony Mantha, Pete Sampras, Billy Gilmore, Trevor Bauer, Anthony Volpe, or is it Volpe? Drew Brees, retired. Obi Toppin for some reasons up in there. Tom Wilson, Emmitt Smith, Rasmus Dahlin, Vidal Brujan, Alex DeBrincat, Luke Dort, Nick Solak, Mike Evans. Those are some of the hot players. Interesting thing about market movers is it shows you the trends, obviously after it already happens. There isn't somebody out there that can tell you, oh, who should I buy now? I've got $100. I want to turn it into 1,000 by next week because I got rent due. Who should I be buying? Market movers, tell me. All right, it doesn't work that way. And a lot of these other channels I see, guys are getting these questions and fielding these questions. And perhaps it's part of the content that they do to where people think they can ask those questions and those guys will know. Like I said, I'm not a hype channel. If you want those hype channels, just head elsewhere. I'll show you all the data you want to see, though. And you guys and gals, obviously, you've got to make your own decisions, do your own research. So hot players, that's the last 7 days. But let's take a look at the last 14 real quick. You would have thought you'd see the same names, right? Or some of the same names at least. And you do see some, but you see Aaron Naismith, Nkongwu, Vidal Brujan's there, Tom Wilson, Gary Sheffield. Mysteriously, what did he do? Perhaps he did something that I don't know about. Kendrick Nunn, Billy Gilmore, you got Paul Goldschmidt, Stephon Marbury, nice. When you're seeing these, I'm seeing these for the first time as well. I always wondered if his 1996 tops would have taken off because though he's not in the same category as Kobe, Ray, Iverson, Nash, those guys, same rookie class, I was always wondering, what about Steph? Would he take off? So you got Jackson Hayes, Brogdon, Zinedine Zidane. Is he still around? Oh, headbutt guy. Pedro, Gary Payton, Mike Stanton, Alex DeBrincat. He was on the 7-day list as well. Last 7 days, not so hot. Vitek Vanasek, and I'll probably pronounce some of these names wrong because they participate in sports that I don't know much about. Hockey, football, UFC, namely. Here's one. John Jones, Nate Diaz. A lot of UFC stuff. Maladon. Before the year, I was thinking about guys like Maladon and Darius Baisley, Thunder guys, young team. We knew they'd be pretty terrible. They started off not so bad, but they've really embraced the fade for Cade lately. Jordan Poole, Israel Adesanya. But I was picking up some of Maladon's cards, and I was picking up Baisley's cards. And as the season went along, I kind of got this feeling that maybe Oklahoma City guys, Pokashevsky now, that maybe some of their guys, and this isn't advice, of course, but maybe some of those guys aren't necessarily the best investments. Shai, I picked up a lot of his graded stuff as well, and that's been in the shitter. But because they have so many picks, and they're always going to have so many young guys coming in, right? For instance, they have 2 picks this year. Their pick, plus there's some protections on that Rockets pick, and they have the Heat pick as well. It looks like if everything falls according to how it looks now, that they'd end up having the Heat pick and their own pick. And the Rockets would maintain that pick. It's top 4 protected. So if it falls out of the top 4, then OKC would be in great shape. But that's 2 more young guys coming in that would send Pokashevsky somewhere, that would send Theo Maledon somewhere. Shai looks like a keeper, right? But it looks like, okay, yeah, they've got so many young guys. But they may have a situation where they have too many. But that's just something I was thinking about as an investor as the season went along. And I saw these price drops. And I just saw how things were kind of unfolding. So long term, something I'm thinking about. A more red here, Tillman, Devontae Graham, he was getting a lot of hype coming into the season. Kubalek, Yamamoto, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Remember how he popped off the first week of the season and his card just exploded. Now, whereas those are individual players, here's individual cards. It's the Bradley Beal Hoops Base Raw, up 552%. I can't imagine there's a ton of those floating around, but are you telling me that there was a point in time where I could have had a Bradley Beal 2012 Hoops Rookie Raw for $132? Whew. Drew Brees retirement. I don't know what the play is there. I don't know how you guys feel about things when you see a guy retire. You would usually think that, like, okay, he's done. I get that he's one of the all-time greats at the quarterback position. You just kind of wonder what the investment strategy would be like. Are guys looking to hold long-term? Bo Bichette's 20 Chrome base, up 378%. Dylan Carlson's Rainbow Foil, up 243%. And again, with these 2, Zion Williamson's Chronicles Rookies and Stars, maybe a little bit lesser on the population, obviously, with that Carlson. Surprisingly, 7 sold during the week, though. I always wondered what the population counts were for those Rainbow Foils versus the Topps Gold card. Obviously, we're looking at 2021 this year. How many Rainbow Foils were printed? How can I know which one is more rare? How to covet or value one more? In my opinion, I like the look of the Rainbow Foil cards myself. But as I said, I don't know which one is more rare. So you see Jordan Alvarez taking a jump. Another Zion. Prism draft picks. Base. And these are base cards here. I'll show you some graded cards in the next chart. More Zion. Luis Robert. I wonder now, given his injury, and he's going to be out a significant chunk of time, many months, how that's going to look. And you wrap it up here with Corey Seager. Some particular cards not so hot right now. This Laviska Shenault Concourse. And you'll see a couple Concourse here as I scroll down, but they just came out, and it looks like there's a lot of that stuff out there. Interestingly enough, some of his other cards from the same set were on the hot list. You didn't see them there, but because they were a little bit lower down on the list. Anthony Edwards Hoops arriving now. Jaw's just been get hit hard all season long. If you've been watching his card prices, I purchased several prior to the season. It's like throwing money away, baby. That stuff happens even when a player is as solid as he is. For some reason, the market's just not into him right now. LeBron James Revolution base raw. Alec Boehm draft base raw. Then you've got some Joe Adele, Landry Shamet, Cole Anthony, Chimiev again. That's UFC, his silver. Mike Trout. You can get a 2020 Topps. Project by Jacob Rochester. Numbered out of 33,818 it looks like here. I'm not familiar with the product, but $2.25. Can you believe that? I wanted to get into some specifics, graded cards. I filtered by PSA 10, BGS 9.5, and the SGC 10, just to see what was trending down right now. So here you see it. Pete Alonso's Chrome Update, down 50%. This is the last 7 days. Devontae Graham, we saw him on the previous list. Kuzma, Kobe Bryant, 2019 Prism base. That's a PSA 10. Jason Dominguez Bowman base, PSA 10, down to $75 when it was at $110. Mike Trout's 2012 Topps base PSA 10, 7 days ago at $227, down to $164. Rui Hachimura, still going down. I don't know how much lower he can go. I bought several of his cards as well, and we'll just say that I paid a lot more than 73 and I paid a lot more than 52. I think I was paying about 110, 120-ish for his Prism base, and this was back in November. So you got Zion BGS 95, Bull, the hobby favorite. And then Luis Robert, you saw him on the hot list earlier for some of his particular cards, but here you see his Chrome PSA 10 down 27% in the last 7 days, and I'd imagine, as I said, you're going to see a lot more of a decrease on him once the injury is factored in and people understand that he's not going to be back for several months and perhaps misses the season. What's hot right now? Same thing. I looked at PSA 10, BGS 95, and SGC 10s to see what was hot the past 7 days. Pete Sampras, Yordan Alvarez, obviously you know what happened to him last year. He played in, what was it, one game? A couple games maybe? After having such a strong rookie season back in 2019. Ohtani did it again tonight. 10 Ks over 7 innings, had a base hit. Angels ended up losing the game, of course, but he did his thing, and investors are loving that, obviously. Yordan Alvarez is Topps base PSA 10. Started the week 7 days ago, was at 40. Now it's up to about $56. And then Jared Kelenic, I heard word just yesterday, I believe it was, or perhaps the day before, but he is looking at getting called up soon. Investors are obviously starting to look at his stuff. Is it a time to sell? Is it a time to buy? Who knows? Again, that's something that individual buyers and sellers have to figure out for themselves. I don't own any of his firsts. I do have some of his subsequent years, obviously not as valuable. When he makes his debut, I'd probably look to unload what I have. Trae Young, finally getting some love. Bought some of his stuff prior to the year as well. Most of the stuff I bought's been like in the toilet. Jack Flaherty, Topps base PSA 10, up to $35. And Kobe White, actually seeing some gains as well. I bought some of his stuff. That stuff hit the toilet as well. There's 3 players that I'm actually looking at, and we'll wrap it up on these 3 guys. First guy I was thinking about was Donovan Mitchell. He popped in my mind because he's been out for a while. Utah's been hanging on to that number 1 seed. The Suns lost tonight to put them 2 losses behind the Jazz, so it looks like maybe Utah will hold on to that number 1 spot. But I was curious about his stuff because they said he's going to miss the final 3 games. That was just news on the 11th of May. He'll miss the final 3 games, and I kind of wonder how he'll come back from that. Different kind of thing, obviously. But Anthony Davis, it took him some time to kind of get ramped up. He just went for 42 and 12 a couple nights ago. Imagine him coming back and say they end up in a playoff series. You know, right now it's looking like the Lakers are going to be in the play-in tournament. Memphis is locked in. Golden State's locked in. We're looking at one more team, most likely the Spurs. If Utah goes into a series and he's just coming back at that point, how does that look? How does he get ramped up quickly to where they're at full strength? And would that put them at a disadvantage? Say they ended up going against a team like the Grizzlies. Or say somehow the Lakers stay in the 7 and they play the Grizzlies in the 8. If the Lakers fall that first game and then they win their second game to get the 8 seed, I think if you're a Laker team, and granted LeBron and his ankle, he's got issues of his own, but at least he'll have a couple games to try to get ramped up before the season ends. If you're the Lakers or the Grizzlies and you draw the Jazz, I think you might be feeling okay about yourself, as opposed to having Mitchell at full strength. But I wanted to take a look at his prices the last 7 days, and then we'll run it back a little bit further as well. But you see the last 7 days, Prism here is on the purple line, Optic base is the blue, and then I've got the Concourse here on the green. His Prism base was $377. Faded a little bit, it's down to $340, which is down about 10%. Whereas you see Concourse has very little sales, but its population count is 1/8. Now, perhaps that's not a fair comparison based on population count, but it looks like it's almost going to intersect and cross over and even be more valuable than the Prism base. And then you see his optic down here at $165, down 11% in the past 7 days. Decided to change the chart up a little bit and look at his percentage changes over the past 2 weeks. So again, we have the Prism in purple, the Concourse on the green line, and then the optic base on the blue. The Prism's been down 7.5%, the optic's been down 21%, and the Concourse has been about break even on Mitchell. I wonder how the news is going to affect his prices. Say we look at him again in a week. He's missing these next 3 games. Are people going to sell, or are they going to be like, okay, well, Mitchell's way too cheap now? I expect him to come back. I expect Utah to make a run in the playoffs. Is that the mindset that people are going to be thinking about? Mr. Ohtani, mentioned him earlier, the night of the 11th. Like I said, he did his thing, 7 innings, 10 Ks against the Astros, base hit. I ran his Topps Chrome base, which is on the green line here, his update base on the orange line, and then on the blue line, his Bowman base. We only had 1 data point for his Chrome base, which was the batting variation of the card. But you see here, things have been pretty flat-ish the past 7 days, except the Chrome update. If we run it back 2 weeks, though, you can again get a look here. You see we don't have any data for the Chrome. So few of those out there. But you see his Chrome update base up 56%, his Topps base paper up 13%, and his Bowman base actually down 1.4%. And these are all PSA 10 here. I got curious, so I pretty much ran it back to the beginning of the season. I wanted to see what the percentage increases were on him because his stuff was pretty cheap, money-wise. Guys are cheap for a reason, right? A lot of people talk about, oh, this guy's undervalued. This guy, I think he's undervalued. I'm not too much of a hype guy. Like I said, to me, a guy is properly valued based on his performance. When he performs, though, or if you expect him to perform or a bunch of people come along and they expect him to outperform the price, then you'll see those price increases. Like I said, I'm not a hype guy. I just look at the data. But going back to it, since the start of the season, you see his Chrome base up 87%, his Bowman up 47.5%, his Topps update base up 31%, and his Bowman Chrome base batting up 40%. I'm curious to see how this goes for him because a lot of people have been able to make a lot of money quickly. Some have been able to make, as you've seen here, 30, 40, 50%, double their money on his stuff in a month and a half. Are those individuals going to continue to try to ride the wave, or are they going to be looking to sell and take some profits? All right, one more player we're going to take a look at. You know him, you love him. Mr. Tatis just got word today that he went back on the injured list. COVID this time, though. So it'll be a situation where we need to take a look at him in a week or two to see how things have gone. I've got here on the purple line his Topps base, on the green line his BGS Topps base 9.5, and on the orange line it looks like there's only 1 data point there. We've got his Topps base SGC 10. Got his archives here on this blue line. Darker blue here is a BGS 9.5 Topps Chrome. And then we got his Chrome in a PSA 10 here on the red line. I know we're comparing a couple different cards, so don't look so much at the lines relative to each other. Just look at how prices have changed over time. And over the past week, he's come back. He's been pretty hot. Started off the season really slow. Injury issue, obviously, seemingly working his way back. And now he gets hit with COVID. It's one of those situations where sometimes you wonder if a guy's just a little bit snake bitten in a given year. But this is really what you want to see right here. The Topps archives has actually been outperforming all of his other cards over the past 7 days. Perhaps individuals saw that those other cards were in their minds overvalued. But up about 30%. His BGS 9.5 Chrome's been flat. His SGC 10's been flat. The PSA's been down about 7%. And his Chrome base PSA 10's been down 12%. So again, as I said, I'd be curious to see what happens to him over the next week to 2 weeks. So I'll have to make a note to revisit him in a couple weeks and see how this COVID situation works itself out in terms of his prices. Our guys, thinking, hey, this is just short term. Are people out there looking to buy the dip? Are people out there saying, hey, it's time to unload? This guy's has two things now, the injury before, the shoulder, and then this. Is it a sign where it's time to jump out? As I said before, though, that's all things that you guys and girls need to think about when you're out there. I'm not much of a flipper. I don't know how people do it, how they have the stomach for it. Too much writing on it. I think you have to be involved in sports day to day, watching every day, watching every game, waiting for a guy to pop off, and looking for the right selling moment. That's something I probably don't have time to do. For those of you out there, this is something that's a great tool to show you trends. It can't show you what's next, but it will give you a good idea of what's happened and kind of what the market's feeling about certain players in a given time. So, first episode of this, if you want to see any players, if you happen to catch this video and you want to see any players in the next one, Saturday night, my video is going to be NBA based. We'll be a little bit closer to the playoffs. We'll have a little bit more locked in terms of seeding. And I'm going to look at some of the guys that I think might be hot, or guys that the market's saying, hey, they think this guy could win a series. Maybe they get into a favorable matchup with a team that has some injuries. Maybe you end up with a Dallas or a Portland. Some of their players jumping off if it looks like the Nuggets are a little banged up. And as I said, teams like Utah with Mitchell. We'll see what happens with LeBron. And who knows what will happen between now and then on the injury front. You don't wish that on anyone, of course, but those are things investors think about. So thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. If you want to see anybody NBA-wise on that Saturday video, let me know.